Hey, and welcome back to Get On Board. This time with the first look at this little game here, Duelosaur Island.
Smart sound.
So Duelosaur Island is the second game in this series. Its direct predecessor, Dinosaur Island, had a pretty good two-player implementation as well, for my money at least. And it's a little bit of the thing that happened with Seven Wonders a few years ago. Seven Wonders, which could play 2 to 7 players, and like 4 years after its release there came the Seven Wonders Duel variant, which is very popular around right now. And this is kind of the same thing, at least that's what I thought when I got this game. It only plays 2 players, it plays 1 or 2 players, but it's mostly a 2-player game. And I got into a little bit of those "do you really need this game" thoughts. Why? What's the difference? What's the unique selling point, so to speak? And why did they bother to put out a new game? They, in this case, Pandasaurus Games. So let me give you a quick rules overview, and then we come back and I tell you what I think about the game now. In Duelosaur Island, the goal of the game, of course, is to get the most visitors into your park. How much visitors the players are having is stated on this track here. And one game of Duelosaur Island will end when one of the players has achieved a certain amount of visitors into their park. For example, a short game would take a player to get 25 visitors, a medium game would take 35, and a long game would take 45 visitors. The game evolves around those dinosaur cards, and each card is separated into 2 parts. On the top of each card there's a dinosaur, which players can clone, which has a certain DNA cost in this box here. And those dinosaurs will bring players excitement, which is kept track on this excitement level meter. And also they will bring visitors, of course, but also, depending on how large the dinosaurs are, several threats, so that maybe in the future they will eat some of your visitors, which of course you don't want. On the bottom there are different kinds of attractions which will give certain bonuses throughout the game. Duelosaur Island is played a certain amount of rounds until one player has hit the visitor threshold, and every round has 4 phases. At the beginning of each round, players get income, depending on the number of food attractions they have built. They look like this. And they also get money for every income space on the excitement track. And these are marked with these yellow corners here. They have crossed. They also get to draw cards at the beginning of each round. And every time a player draws a card, they can draw one of those 3 face-up ones, or from this pile of face-down cards. And they can draw extra cards for every of those merchandise stands they have built. And basically the game evolves around this board here. And the start player of each round will turn over 2 new specialists cards. This is the pile of specialist cards, and each of those are different. They will turn over 2 of these. They give certain bonuses throughout the game. And then they reach into this giant bag, which is so huge that actually one other game fit in this. Normally, of course, it's not another game, but these yellow dice that would go in there. And the starting player would grab 5 of these out there, would roll them and put them on these boards however he likes to. So he chooses which die will go on which spot. And then the other player, the player who's not the star player, would get the first choice. Either take one of those dice with the corresponding marker under it, put it down like this. For example, if the other player would choose this, they would get one yellow DNA and draw another card. Or they could decide to take one of those two specialists cards. So whenever a player gets DNA, they would mark that on their player board. Each of the players has one of those boards. And you see on the left side there are 6 tracks where they can keep track of each of those DNAs. You see there are 3 basic ones and 3 advanced forms of DNA. They are a little bit harder to get. If they would get money, they just take the coins on their player board. And basically this phase where they draft the dice or the specialist cards is just so that the players get money for the main phase of the game, in which the players just play their cards. If they would take the time to clone a dinosaur, they would put it over here. If they decide to build an attraction, they would pay the cost in coins and slide it under this part of their player board. They could also decide to sell DNA for money or exchange DNA, and they also can decide to upgrade their security level. So they would pay a certain cost, move this cube down, because at the end of each round there is a phase where the threat level is determined. So each of those dinosaurs that players build, for example, this is a very dangerous dinosaur. It's very expensive to clone, and it also would give the player 3 security threats. So they would move down 3. And at the end of each round, you would compare your threat level to your security level. And if you have more threat than security, your dinosaurs would start to eat your visitors. Let's go back to the visitors board. If your threat level is higher, for each level that the threat level is higher, you would lose 2 visitors, which are eaten, like this. And then you would count up your excitement level. For example, this Spinosaurus gives 3 excitement, so you would keep track like this. And how many excitement you have, that's how many visitors you gain. The player who has the least excitement at the end of each round will get one of those PR bonuses, and they could choose one that is to the left of this PR marker, though the PR marker will move to the right for each round. So basically that's the whole game. Let's keep talking about what those visitors, those specialists do. Most of them give you a certain bonus one time per round. For example, this would give you each phase 3. In the build phase, you can discard 1 card from your hand to gain 2 coins, so another way to make money. But some of them will also give you endgame scoring conditions. This one, at game end, gain 1 visitor for each right icon in your park. Right icon are this ones. Or you can get more income or more DNA. But if you don't want one of those specialists, and each player only can have 3, and if you don't want them, you just can discard them and would get a certain bonus. Like this one would give you a DNA. This one would give you straight up 1 visitor. There are some who let you increase your security level for free, or give you an advanced DNA, or stuff like that. Those cubes are all, those dice, are all different. Some give you a basic DNA of your choice, or 2 basic DNA of your choice, advanced DNA of your choice. Some of them give you money. There is one that has a security upgrade for free. And there are more cubes than are needed each round, so more dice, I keep saying cubes. Of course, more dice in this bag than there are needed, so each round of the game there will be different dice out. And each of those die phases have also these security or these threat levels here. And whatever die is left at the end of each drafting phase, this will give each of the players the certain amount of threat icons for this round only, so they have to increase their security level a little bit more or a little bit less each round. That's basically the game. Who has the most visitors at the end of each game is the winner. So what do I think about the game of Duelosaur Island? Of course it's a 2-player version, so they had to cut a few of the things. They did, but it still feels like Dinosaur Island. There is no more worker placement, which I really enjoy. It's one of my favorite mechanisms. But it captures the spirit of the game, and I think that people who have played the original Dinosaur Island will recognize the game as a Dinosaur Island retouch. The mechanisms that they have chosen, the dice drafting and the card drafting and the simultaneous card play, I didn't tell you this in the rules overview, but the phase where the players play the cards is played simultaneously, which is nice. These mechanisms work really well for 2 players. It's a back and forth. You have only one other player to concentrate on those tracks, which in the original game, when you played with more than 2 players, was you had to balance a lot of simultaneous factors, which is not that hard in this game, which is good. So it makes the game a little easier to learn, because it also has a lot of phases, but the phases are quicker to explain, I think, which was a little pain when you had to teach the original Dinosaur Island. And other than that, I think, like I said, it has the same spirit than the original game, but the thing about this is I really love the original Dinosaur Island game, and I'm really surprised that this game, the 2-player version, is as good as it is. I bought it, although I kickstarted it, so the Kickstarter version will go to Germany, and meanwhile I'm in the United States, so it's gonna be a while to get to Germany to pick up my version of the game. So I saw it in a store here in Seattle, and I wanted to have it right on the spot, so I bought it, which is not the smartest thing to do, I think, but I really wanted to play it. I wanted to give it a shot. So I was a little bit. I had some issues before I saw the game being played, or before I saw the components, because I thought, do you really need this game? The 2-player version or the 2-player feeling of the base game was perfect for me, although I didn't like the short version of the game because it didn't seem to get going, or when the game was getting good, the game was over. So my machine that I tried to build in Dinosaur Island didn't seem to hit its potential, and then the game was over, which I didn't like, which is better here. The short game works better, I think. Like, getting to 25 visitors is achievable, and you can do a lot before this, which I think you couldn't do in the short game of the Dinosaur Island, of the original game. And my hesitations that I had beforehand are almost gone, because I think it's a good implementation of the original feeling. Of course, some people will miss the worker placement, but I think worker placement is kind of hard to do with only 2 players. There are a few games that achieve that very good, but there's Tagi, for example. But other than that, I think it's a good thing that they got rid of this mechanism, made a fresh start, so to speak, but without getting rid of all the Dinosaur Island feeling. Other than that, the components are really fine, like you would expect from Pandasaurus Games, because they did an amazing production with the original game. A few of the tokens are a little small. There are those lawsuit tokens, which I find amazing. You get those when your visitors get eaten, but you don't have any more visitors, so you get slapped with a lawsuit, which is minus 5 points at the end of the game. I love them, but they are a little small. By the way, I love the comedic elements that they put in, the lawsuit tokens. There are a few cards that have different funny names. For example, there is a Fidget Spinosaurus as a dinosaur. There's a DNA nachos, so DNA nachos, which I thought was pretty funny. Maybe that's just me, but I like that the dinosaurs are all called differently. I don't know if these are real dinosaur names, but I guess there are some of them at least. Of course, the game is not as complex as the original game, which is kind of a good thing. Maybe some people will get turned off of this, people who played the original game at least. But it has very much replayability inside of the box. There are a lot of specialist cards, like I told you in the overview of the rules, they are all different. There are a lot of those plot twist tokens that go along with the dice that go on the tracks where you can draft the dice. So every game you get other different bonuses that you get with each die drafted. There are a lot of those 2-part dinosaur cards, and I think there will be an expansion in the future because they are marked. So I think the rulebook gives a hint to that there might be an expansion. Of course, the quality of the game, the bag that I showed you, is great. It's good for large hands because some of the games just have this tiny little bag, which is a hassle to get your hands in when you have larger hands. The dice are really cool, and you could use them in the original game, which I like, although there are a lot of dice, but it's cool that there are more dice than are needed in any game. That's cool. A few problems that I have with the game. The biggest one by far, let me just... There it is. The rulebook. The rulebook is fine. You can understand it by reading it. It's okay. I don't like the font that they used, but that's just me. I think it's... By reading it, there are not some innuendos or so. It's okay. But there at the back there is a gameplay reference. There's a round overview, so each phase is broken down there, which is good. But there is no overview which symbols are there and what the symbols mean. So you constantly, like for your first 2 or 3 games, you're constantly looking in the rulebook. What does the t-shirt stand do? What does the food stand do? What does the other symbol mean? Constantly you have to think about that. And even the rules of the phases. For example, in phase 3 there is one option that you can do. You can mix DNA. Okay, so like it stands here, only mix DNA. What does it mean? You have to go back inside the rulebook. What does it do? Sell DNA. Sell DNA is pretty easy. You just sell 2 basic DNA for $1 or 1 advanced DNA for $1. That's easy. You can remember that. Okay, so mixed DNA, what do? You can sell, you can exchange 2 basic DNA for 1 advanced DNA or vice versa, but you have to get rid of one of your cards. You have to discard one of your cards from your hand to do that. There's enough space left on the back side of this rulebook. Why didn't they put that on there? I don't like that really, because it's a hurdle that you didn't need coming into the game. Otherwise it's not that hard, but please put a card, just print 1 more card or 2 more cards for each player to have right in front of them. Or I didn't know, let me grab the player board. The player board is great. It's sturdy. It's double layered so that the tokens won't go anywhere when you tap the board. But there's so much space on it. They could have put a rules overview on this board. I don't get why they didn't do it, but maybe that's just me. But I think a few players will run into this issue. Other than that, of course, the cover art is great, and the 80s like Miami Vice neon colored look is really great. All other components are great, and for people who like Dinosaur Island, but maybe wanted a little quicker version, although it's not that much quicker of a game. It's like 45 minutes at least, I think. Even the shorter game, maybe you can get it down to like 40 minutes, but I think it's a 40-minute game at least. And one funny thing, or one thing that I don't know if it will happen all the time, but the medium game, the first medium game that I played, it was over at the same time that the long game would have taken. So it would have been the same amount of rounds, which I thought was strange, but maybe that's just some of the times. So what's my first impression? It's promising, a very promising game. I have to play it a little more to give my final thoughts on it. But it's good for players who like the Dinosaur Island. Of course, it's also good for the players who haven't played the Dinosaur Island, who really want to get a feel, maybe a little cheaper entry into the game. If you only play with two players, I can emphasize that both games are good, but maybe you like dice drafting or drafting in general more than you would like worker placement. Then I think the Duelosaur Island version is better for you. From a perspective of the footprint, it almost is the same than the original game, because Duelosaur Island, as does Dinosaur Island, they take a huge amount of table space, so you really need a bigger table for this game. And also this game, it starts a little bit with a tinier footprint, but when you finish the game and you have like 6, 7, 8 or 10 dinosaurs on the upper side of your player board and like 6 or 7 attractions tucked on the bottom side of your player board, it takes a lot of space, but it's easy to play. It's easier to get into, I think. You have to, if you can remember the rules without a round overview, like a proper round overview, it's an easier entry point, I think. And I think both players will have a good time with it. Players who didn't play the first version and also players who did. And one more thing that I want to mention, there are, some people will love that, I would love to try these one time. There are single player cards which simulate like a dummy player. I wanted to learn them, but the cards didn't seem to be so easy to learn, so maybe I will come around to do that. But they seem to be, well, a lot more rules than I like them to be. So maybe we'll come around to the solo game, but just be sure there are for people who like those kind of things. I think that's all that I have to say to the game. I told you it's a promising game. I want to play it a little bit more. No concerns other than the round overview that they really should have included. Components top notch. Other than that, thank you for watching. Get on board. See you next time. Bye.